Welcome to Plastic Model Mojo, a podcast dedicated to scale modeling, as well as the news and events around the hobby. Let's join Mike and Kentucky Dave as they strive to be informative, entertaining, and help you keep your modeling mojo alive.
Dave, episode 95, the last one before the National Convention, man.
I cannot wait, man.
And we got a guest tonight, Mr. Panzermeister 36, Evan McCallum. Evan, how's it going?
It is going very well in my last-minute rush to finish stuff for the Nationals. I am super excited.
Well, I guess you can add that to what's up in your model sphere, because we're going to start with you tonight.
Oh, so my model sphere right now is turned up to 11 because I've got a couple projects that I want to have finished for the Nationals. So I'm doing a weathering presentation, and we're recording this on a Monday night. So exactly 1 week from now, I should be on final approach to land in Kentucky there. So I've got to get this stuff finished up this week. And we can get more in this on my benchtop halftime report. Yeah, I've got a couple projects here. I'm just flying along, taking photos for my presentation and having a good time, of course. It's modeling, right? It's fun, but it's a bit of a speed run, I guess.
Tell the people the insane decision that you made as to how you're getting to the Nationals.
So I'm driving over the U.S. border, first of all, because flying within the U.S. is almost 1/3 the price as if I flew international from Canada. So I'm driving to Syracuse, New York, 3 hours, and I'm taking two-hour flights, and I'm actually landing in Kentucky so I can take a road trip with you guys for 15 hours to Texas. Now, I could have taken the direct flight to Texas, but that cost, a couple dollars more, and also I'm looking forward to a nice long road trip as well. It'll be cool to see the western states from the ground rather than from the air, I guess.
You're a brave man.
This episode is kind of a cheap omelet, man. It's pretty scrambled up, so I think we were going to drop that segment. So why don't you go ahead and just tell us what you're working on?
So I have got a Jagdpanzer 4 that I was working on with a buddy build with my good friend Hamilcar Barkus, who gave you guys some good listener mail last episode. So I'm finishing the weathering on that tonight and tomorrow, hopefully. And I'm also photographing the process, and there will be a step-by-step on that during my weathering presentation at the Nationals. And I also have a Panhard 178, which was a secret project that Kentucky Dave leaked last episode. I should have had an NDA, I guess.
Yes.
Lawyers, right?
That's right.
So that's something I'm working on as well. I put that together like a month ago. I just realized I have to have something else for my presentation. So I just threw together that kit, put a bunch of resin into it as well because it was a fun project. And now I'm also finishing weathering that for some looks at some different techniques during the presentation as well. That thing is not nearly as far along as I would like it to be, but I have 1 week. So we will see. And I hope to bring that one and enter it in the competition as well.
Well, I can't
That's
wait.
a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot for 1 week, but I don't need to sleep, right?
Yeah, no.
I don't know. You sleep in the car.
Right. Sleep is for old people.
Well, Dave, you been sleeping then?
Too much because my model's not done yet. I'll talk about what's in my model sphere in a second, but I can give the listeners a peek behind the curtain. Mike came into Louisville on Saturday with his son, and we had lunch. And everybody knows I'm always fired up for the Nationals. It's the best 4 days of my year, every year. I enjoy it, etc. I got to say, Mike, I have never seen you so fired up for Nationals. This is going to be an enjoyable experience.
I hope so.
My model sphere is me trying to get this F8 done. I am buzzed about the Nationals. I've had my suitcase half packed for a week, and we're still a week away from the show. Now it's all down to last minute coordination, double check and make sure I've already got the confirmation on the room reservation, but I want to double check that. And then Evan and I were actually talking about what T-shirts we were bringing to the nationals to wear. So just all those little things that go into a national, and I'm really anticipating it this time. I can't wait. So how about you, Mike?
Other than getting super extra excited, actually I was just talking to Bruce Worrell a little bit just a few seconds ago on Facebook Messenger, and he asked me if I had anything to take. And unfortunately, I've had a very poor productive year this year. School year was tough. I've made a lot of progress on several projects, but I haven't gotten anything done.
Right.
Though I am telling you, I'm tempted to take the E16 and the catapult and let some people see it.
I think you should. I really think it's worth. Well, hell, you could almost enter that catapult.
No, it's not done.
Well, you could do that. That's what Dave did for Heritage Con. He brought his entry, but he didn't enter it.
Yeah, I didn't get it. Well, in that one, it came apart on the way up, or when I was packing it. So, which, by the way, I still have to repair. I got a lot of stuff to do.
I may do that, but other than that, I don't have entries this year. Hopefully, though, I'm staged to have at least 2 next year, but I'm not going to commit like you do, Dave.
Well, I am actually bringing something to enter, or at least one thing and maybe more.
All right. That's my model sphere, getting stoked for the show and making sure our ducks in a row so we can have a good trip.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it. Because we're recording, you got to have a modeling fluid. Let's start with Evan. Evan, what kind of modeling fluid do we have?
So in honor of my 2 co-hosts here, I got some Southern Comfort. No, I'm just joking. I'm taking a road trip with you guys. I don't want to be disappeared.
Yeah.
I have got Wyatt Rose Mexican Lime Ranch Water. Maybe this is a little bit along the lines of Texas, we could say, but this is a tequila and lime soda. And we've been talking recently about how apparently I'm the only one who likes tequila. Mm-hmm. It's actually one of the few alcoholic
hard liquors.
Yeah, hard liquors that I enjoy because usually I can't really taste the flavor beyond the burn because I guess my palate isn't advanced enough yet. But with tequila, I find it has a nice taste. So this is in a can, 5% ABV. It's just a blue agave tequila Mexican lime soda. It's good. I've had it before. It's a nice light beverage, more something I think you would probably sip on a porch. I like it.
So, Mike, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking the, and I think my spaceship knows which way to go, Double India Pale Ale from Triptych that you brought me.
Yes, that was Tommy Choi brought it to us.
Well, thanks, Tommy. It's we'll talk about it at the end, but I'm drinking it finally.
Yeah, and I enjoy it. Now, this one, okay, I know I'm going to catch some heck for this one, but I'm drinking Cider Boys Peach Country Apple Peach Hard Cider. 5% ABV. It is. Peach is the thing that they're adding to all the flavored beers this year. And, okay, I fell for it, and I got it. And I'm going to drink it, and I'll let you know how it turns out.
That sounds like a me beverage.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Sweet cider.
I may pack one of these for you.
Peach thing's kind of interesting. That cold snap back in December decimated a lot of this year's peach.
Yeah, it did.
Peach crop. So, guess you have to have peach beer instead.
Yep. It's not bad, though.
Well, is that it? That's what you're drinking?
That's Nothing what I'm else? Drinking.
You only got one. Yeah, you only got one mouth.
Yeah, I'm not too. I'm not doing two fisting. No way.
All right. Well, we got a little bit of listener mail. We should probably get into that.
Yep. Let's do it.
Well, we got a nice little reply. I guess it was from the Wheel. We had one about overthinking.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Paul Buzik wrote in, and he liked the response. He gets this kind of response every time he says like he's doing one of his techniques, like where he scribes panel lines directly into the paint.
Yeah. And
the universal response is, well, what if I make a mistake? And he says, here's a unique concept. Don't make a mistake. So he goes on, though. It's not quite as flippant as that might sound, just without any context. If your first thought is you're going to make a mistake, how are you ever going to evolve? If you see something you like, it's better to shift your perspective and say to yourself, I like that. I'm going to learn how to do it. If he can do it, I can do it. I just need practice. Now they're not mistakes. It's just practice.
Yep. I like that attitude.
That's a good attitude. Recently, I've been finding myself a lot more hesitant to not only try new effects, but do things I've done before because I'm worried I'm going to mess them up. And I'm trying to, make a video or something. And then whenever I get around to doing it, it always works perfectly fine. So you just got to have a little more confidence. And usually it goes fine. And I mean, most of the time when something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world. I mean, there are some build enders, but yeah.
Yeah, we've all had those.
Well, and the truth is, 95% of the things you worry about never happen. And the other 5% worrying about it didn't make any difference.
Yeah.
So
up next, who we got? Mark Doremus, often contributing. And he's going all the way back to our Stump the Airbrush Chump. And he's finally gotten around to fixing 3 air valves he's been having trouble with. So he's got a fleet of airbrushes like you do, Dave, apparently.
Yeah, I'm there for you, man. I feel it.
The first one, he took it apart, couldn't find anything wrong with it, put it back together, and it worked.
Yep.
Oh, that's never happened to me.
Oh God, that absolutely that happens all the time.
Yeah, you didn't see the offending chunk of whatever fall out of there when you took it apart. Yeah, that's probably what happened. The second one, he knows there's no ring to jump the groove and it's not in place to seal the opening, so that was a quick fix. The third one, tore it down, rebuilt it, still has a small leak when he tried it. Not sure on that one, but anyway, he appreciates the inspiration there to work on his airbrushes.
Yep.
Get them tuned up.
And you know what? That sometimes is a thing I'll do if I come down to the bench and either I don't have time or motivation to work on something big. Once or twice a year, I'll tear the airbrushes down and give them all a really good cleaning, even if they're all working. I'll give them all a good cleaning just to get them tuned up. And the other thing I'd say is if your airbrush is a Badger, you can mail it to them with a check for like $12 and they will rehab your brush completely, get it back into as from the factory condition and mail it back to you. And you can do that once a year. And it's a great service.
Maybe I should do that.
Yeah.
What are you painting with?
I've got a Badger Renegade Chrome I use for most of my work, and I also have a Badger 105 Patriot I use for heavier primers and stuff. And I like them, but I'm not exactly the best at maintaining my airbrushes. And generally, if there's a problem, I just keep tearing it apart and flooding it with lacquer thinner until it starts working.
Well, you ought to. I highly recommend if you get to a period where you know you're not going to need them for a couple of weeks. Now, I don't know what the deal is in Canada. But in the U.S., you can mail them to them with a check. It's on their website. Go to their website. It tells you. And you mail it to them with a check. And, it takes 2 or 3 weeks. But all of a sudden, one day, you'll open up your mailbox and there will be a box from Badger with your airbrushes in it. And you can send more than one. And they'll rehab them and send them back.
Next is Willie Garcia. He's our German-Irish-Spanish friend.
Yes.
He's wanting to know, he's got a project going on. He's a what-if diorama with a Sukhoi 27K.
Okay.
And he's wanting to know, are there any refueling tankers that be used by Ukrainian jets in 48 scale? My first thought is no, because that's a small airspace.
Yeah, it's small enough.
Anywhere that they need to be active, that's a matter of minutes in most places.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're probably using a tanker.
Okay. The Ukrainians have IL-76s. I do not know if they have the refueling variant of the IL-76 or pods that they can hang off a generic IL-76. My inclination is that Mike is correct, that Ukraine is slightly smaller than the state of Texas. And therefore, in general, you don't need aerial refueling, for at least in the combat that they're currently experiencing. Now, whether
there's nobody flying cap over there.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. It's one of the problems.
And they're not like a force projection kind of army either,
or
military. So
yep,
they're not flying their jets halfway around the world, get them refilled, and then putting them in theater.
Yep, there are only a few countries that can do that.
Well, just from outside Brisbane, Australia, is Roger Newman, and He would like a little clarification if you can give it, Dave. He's trying to get involved with IPMS Australia.
Mm-hmm.
You always acknowledge the national organizations in a few spots every time you do your pitch. He says when he searches IPMS Australia, it appears there's a group in Melbourne, that area, and then there's an IPMS Queensland and IPMS New South Wales. And I'm not sure, I don't know if you are either, how the IPMS is structured over there. But I know that they've the umbrella, the total Australian IPMS umbrella, their primary organization is just going through some
changes,
restructuring and changes. So
yes, I'll tell you what you need to do is reach out to Dave Goldfinch at On the Bench, because IPMS Australia is undergoing some sort of restructuring where the charter to the current, or what was the IPMS Australia branch, is being rejiggered, reconfigured, and possibly given to a new version or a different group of individuals. So it's all in flux. I only hear about it sparingly. Your point of contact for that would be the Podfather himself, Dave Goldfinch at On the Bench. Just reach out to him at onthebench64@gmail.com. And I'm sure that he can answer all your questions, let you know what the current status is and what's developing.
And then finally, from the email side of things, Dave, from New York City, our good friend Michael Karnauka.
Oh, he's got a question.
He's got a question for us.
All right.
Curious to get Evan's take on this one, too, because things have been happening fast in the model industry in the last.
All right.
Which model company, mainstream or aftermarket, small cottage industry, whatever, seems to have taken a few steps backwards since they started the hobby, or since you started the hobby, or been cognizant of things out there with your observations?
Yeah, I've got an answer for that one. I'm sure it's the same as yours, Mike.
I know what he's going to say. Go ahead.
That would be Dragon models, at least in our 1/35th scale armor, and they also do 72nd scale and such. But Dragon models, around the time I started getting serious in the hobby, was arguably the top of the line for 1/35th scale armor. They had all the popular subjects, which is basically meaning all the German heavy tanks from World War II. And they had the best detail. They had all the photo etch. They had great quality decals, best quality of molding, and they had the individual tracks and everything. This is, I don't know, I call this maybe 2005 to 2010. They were top of the line. If you wanted a good kit, you went with them. But then after about, I think, 2012 or 2015 or so, they have not released a new kit. As far as I understand it, basically they lost their entire design team, which then went off and formed companies like Border Model, Meng, Tacom, Ryfield Model, and such. All the designers basically went away, and all that happens is they just keep repopping existing kits, and they might put a sprue that's already been existing into another kit to make a new version, or some of their new stuff has only 3D printed components for the new detail parts. So they're basically a dead company. They just keep re-releasing the old stuff whenever they get a run at a factory. And also their prices keep going up and up and up, even though they are still 10 years behind the curve now in terms of the quality of their kits.
Well, I can't disagree with that, but that's not exactly mine. But
okay,
I'll let Dave go next.
Oh, okay.
No, you go.
The one that jumps out to me is Monogram, which basically exists as a name and nothing really much more now. Whereas back in the 80s, Monogram was it wasn't Tamiya or Hasegawa. It was a very viable, competitive model company releasing every year or two one or two really interesting kits. And I think it's probably the story of manufacturing in America generally, that it just got overtaken by everything elsewhere in the world where it could be done less expensively, and there was plenty of talent, and there was little motivation to continue to do it in the United States. And it just shriveled up until it ultimately ended up disappearing as anything other than a nameplate.
Are they even a nameplate anymore?
I
I think all their kits are now rolled into the Revell brand.
They are, but I don't know. I assume that when the last business ending occurred, that nameplate probably got sold off to somebody. It has certain value as an IP alone, and I'll bet you somebody bought it. And I would love, if anybody out there knows the current status on Monogram, I would love to know.
And then, to your whole point, the fact that I don't know one way or the other is testament to the fact that they're not what they used to be anymore.
Not what they used to be.
Well, I'm going to agree with Michael here. Italeri.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And this is coming at it specifically from the armor kit side. When I got into modeling in the 80s, Itileris like Panzer IVs were like valued way more than Tamiya's.
Yeah. And
they were often talked about their their finesse of detail and all that, their complexity. And even before that, I guess kind of set the tone for Italeri getting into that genre was they inherited all the old Max softskin kits.
Yeah.
That had been sold under the Peerless name.
Yep.
Peerless Max. But I think the original Japanese company was just Max. And it was all the 3/4 ton Dodge variants, the weapons carrier, the staff car, the ambulance, all that stuff.
Yep.
Those kits were arguably ahead of their time, really, as far as fidelity of detail and just detail in general. Finesse, all that. So Italeri got all those. I think even Airfix sold them in England for a while. But anyway, Italeri ended up with them, and they're still part of their core line, those kits. But man, in like the 90s, they started coming out with these like Tiger tanks and Panthers and just seemed really slapdash.
Mm-hmm.
Just really not even as good as the kits they'd sold from a decade earlier. And then now, they've come out with maybe 2 or 3. I think they're all Italian tanks that they've done kind of in the modern era. And I don't even know how good they are. That it's the stuff from the 90s kind of poisoned the well for me that I'd really have to give those a hard look before I would even consider going there probably.
Well, and the other thing is the prices on Italeri kits, which were never cheap, have just went insane in the 2000s.
Don't understand it. So
I don't either.
Aircraft, I don't know. I guess we'll see how good that the Mach-E MC202 is.
Yes, that 32nd scale kit.
Yeah.
I will be very interested to see how good it is, and I'm interested to see what they actually sell it for.
All right, Dave. I think that is it for the email proper. Have you got anything off Facebook Messenger?
We've got a few over from Facebook Messenger. We were contacted by a modeler named Neil Gilborn, I think it's the way you pronounce it. Neil had sent us a picture of a 1/12 scale Bentley, picture of that along with the Hobgoblin Stout that he was drinking. We were talking about what he's building and what he is enjoying about modeling. He's 55 years old. He loved Star Wars as a kid, so he said back in the hobby, he got attracted back to the Star Wars kits. He likes real space and was interested in all of the new real space stuff. And one of the things he said he liked about our podcast was that we talk about the whole range of subjects. We're not focused on armor or aircraft or just cars or whatever. And that we kind of talk about it, all of the different subject matters. So it was a very nice back and forth with him. Our friend Michael Libero reached out because he wanted us to remind people that up in Massachusetts, October 1st at the Hudson Elk Lodge in Hudson, Massachusetts, the IPMS Patriot chapter is putting on a invitational model show. And so he asked us if we wouldn't mind giving that a shout out. And of course, we don't. So if you're planning your fall campaign and you're up in the Northeast, take a look at that one, and we'll probably remind people again as we get closer to that show. On a slightly related subject, Bob Smith reached out. He lives in Ithaca, New York, hour and 15 minutes outside of Ithaca. Ithaca's the nearest IPMS club. And he was trying to think about how to start an IPMS chapter. And frankly, that's one of the things that we on the e-board are working on, is trying to provide a set of tools for somebody who doesn't belong to a club, doesn't have a club really close by, tools for starting a club and finding modelers near you, be they IPMS members or not. And so he reached out to us, and I've got to interact some more with him and also talk with the e-board and see what we can do to assist in starting a new chapter, because that's one of the best things for getting modelers together. Having a club locally is something that will really help most people's modeling experience. So for people who don't have that option, we want to try and get them that option. And finally, and this just happened today, it's coincidental because you mentioned it this weekend. Chris Doppler tried to go to Ed Tackett's website and it wasn't functioning. You had the same experience this weekend. So we're reaching out to Ed to try and figure out what's going on, and we will provide people an update when we get a little more information. But if that happens to you, don't be surprised, because right now it doesn't seem to be working.
Well, if that's it, Dave, we're going to put out a little solicitation here. If you want to talk to the show, you can do so by emailing us at plasticmodelmojo@gmail.com or direct message through the Facebook Messenger. One thing we're trying to get some help with, folks, is we've got a 100th episode coming up here. We're on 95, so we got 5 to go, or 4 to go. Then the one after that will be 100. And we really want to populate the Wheel of Accidental Wisdom one more time, because we are going to have another call-in show where folks will be able to call in via a computer link that we'll provide at the time of, or just ahead of the show time. And we're just looking for more questions for the Wheel, so we can get lots of participation. You can do that. We've already got a couple from Jonathan Bryan out of Corydon, UK, has sent us one, and Adam Greenwald has also sent us one here recently in the last listener mailbag. And please, just keep them coming, and we got some time out ahead of us. I think that's going to hit probably in September, if my math is right. We just really need to get that wheel populated, because we really ran through them last time.
Yes, we did. This is the point in the episode where I ask you, if you haven't done so already, please go and rate Plastic Model Mojo podcast on whatever podcast app you listen on. It's becoming more and more apparent to Mike and I how important that is. We'd appreciate if you give us 5 stars. It really does do a lot to drive our visibility. So if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Podcast Addict, please, if you haven't done so already, please go give us a rating. We'd like you to give us 5 stars. And also, as I say, the best way for us to continue to grow, and we, amazingly enough, are continuing to grow. We're getting new listeners all the time. And one of the ways we do that is current listeners going out and telling their modeling buddies, particularly ones who don't listen to podcasts at all, maybe a little bit technically challenged. Even most of the technically challenged folks have a cell phone now. And if you can help them out by leading them to the podcast and get them listening, we'd appreciate it. It's real helpful for us.
In addition to that, please check out all the other podcasts in the Model Sphere. You can do that by going to www.modelpodcasts.com. That's Model Podcast plural. It's a consortium website set up with the help of Stuart Clark up in Canada from Scale Model Podcast, and he's aggregated all the banners for all the other podcasts who are participating in the spirit of cross-promotion with us. So you can go there and check out the podcasts. We got a lot of blog and YouTube friends out there in the Model Sphere as well. We got Mr. Jim Bates at A Scale Canadian TV, Chris Wallace, a model airplane maker, Stephen Lee, a sprue pie with frets, And Jeff Groves, the inch high guy. I wish he was coming to Nats.
I wish he was too. I'm already working on him for Madison, and he is coming to our regional.
And we can't forget you, Evan, Panzermeister 36. Why don't you give us the elevator spiel on what might be happening in the coming months?
Well, I have a couple of videos planned. I'm working on a Panzer III in North Africa tropical camouflage pattern, which is pretty cool. I also have a video which should release Saturday, so the day after this drops, which will be discussing some recent 3D printed acquisitions I've got, which might be topical for later in this episode. And I have a Panzer IV, and I also have the Panhard, and I have a billion other projects that are slowly progressing because I'm a very methodical builder. I'm not slow. I am methodical.
There you go.
So a lot of projects in the works, but there will be a bunch of cool weathering and build videos soon on some topics once I get around to having some time to make some thumbnails and edit and such. But right now I'm focused on getting stuff done for Nats.
Yeah. How many videos do you typically have going at any one time? 3,
maybe.
Okay.
Because I like to have one thing I'm building, one thing I'm weathering, and maybe another thing at least. So because sometimes you're in a build mood that night, sometimes you're in a painting mood, sometimes you're in a weathering mood. So I like to have something that's always possibly of interest that evening kind of situation, I guess.
I'll be interested when we're riding down to Texas talking to you about how you arrange and handle your video stuff, because that's a real interesting subject to me. So I'm looking forward to your dropping one Saturday. Finally, this is where I would ask, if you're not a member of IPMS USA, that you join. If you're not a member of IPMS Canada, please join IPMS Canada. Whatever national organization is your particular country, please search out and find your national IPMS organization and join them. They're a good group of people who are giving up some of their modeling time to make everybody's modeling experience better. Additionally, right now, voting for IPMS elections and for changes to the bylaws are currently running. So if you're an IPMS USA member, please go to the website and please vote both in the election and for the bylaw changes, yes or no, on the bylaw changes, and then vote. Unfortunately, as far as the election goes, we've got all of the people running unopposed, which frankly is not ideal. So while this time I'd ask you to vote for the people who are running, I'd ask you to consider in the future running yourself. Or if you know somebody you think would be a good addition, getting them to run.
Well, let's stop here, Dave, and have a word from our sponsor.
You got it.
Plastic Model Mojo is now brought to you by Model Paint Solutions, your source for Harder Steenbeck airbrushes, David Union power tools, and laboratory-grade mixing, measuring, and storage tools for use with all your model paints, be they acrylic, enamels, or lacquers. Check them out at www.modelpaintsolutions.com.
It's the final Come and Make It in Texas, Dave and Evan.
This is the small number.
At the time of this recording, we are 9 days from the IPMS National Convention.
It's killing me, man.
It's about 8 too many.
Yes, it is.
Single digits now.
Yeah.
What we've done for this episode is a little earlier in the week, we had a chat with Agent 003, Brandon Jacob. And folks may have, they've heard his updates on this show, and he's been posting quite a bit to the Nats 2023 Facebook group or page, whichever it is, and with a lot of the same information after we air it, and they'll put it on there too. But we talked to him a few days ago and got his top picks on quite a few things you might wish to take in during your time down there. So let's have a listen. Well, Dave, the date is upon us. IPMS National Convention in San Marcos, Texas is knocking on the door. And we have with us tonight Mojovian Special Agent 003, Mr. Brandon Jacob, to give, I guess, his lucky 7, his top picks for the extracurriculars at the IPMS National Convention for folks who want to get out there and experience a little bit more of what Texas has to offer. Brandon, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing very good. How are you guys doing?
doing
It's
great.
not as hot. It's not as hot as it is there. Today's been pretty pleasant, but we're ready to experience the heat.
Well, you're coming to the right place. We're in the thick of it, that's for sure.
I tell you, for the last several months and last several episodes, you've been feeding us some information about the San Marcos area and the things that Dave and I like to try to push is to not twiddle your thumbs at the convention site the entire time. There's a world out there to experience, and you may not be in this geography ever again in your entire life. And this is an opportunity to get out there and take in a little local fare, a little local drink, a little local establishment. And you've just done a stellar job of feeding us places that we might want to consider going. And I guess you've distilled that down into your top picks tonight. And we're going to sum up this lead up to the Nats with what you're going to recommend for us.
Let's do it. You know, it's funny when we started doing this, one of the reasons I thought it might make sense is that the convention center in San Marcos is really nice and everybody's going to be impressed, but it's just 10 minutes out of some really cool areas. And like, I was afraid that people were going to come from Kentucky or Canada or wherever and like go, wow, San Marcos was basically a convention center on I-35 and I wound up eating at Texas Roadhouse or something. And that's not what we want people to do today.
No, not at all.
No.
So that was part of the strategy behind this thing, right? The whole time is like, what, you know, some people might not go out except for one night, a lunch and a dinner. So let's try to give them something decent.
Make it count.
You got it, man. You got it. And, you know, I got to caveat something. You know, I don't live in San Marcos. I have family that's lived in San Marcos for 40 years. I spent a lot of time in San Marcos, but I certainly, you know, haven't gone to every establishment in San Marcos. So just because like it's not mentioned, you know, on our podcast or what have you, it doesn't mean it's not a good restaurant. I've never like went into a place during my little field studies, if you will, and like walked out saying, wow, that sucked. I better not tell Mike and Dave about this place. But there were some places that, you know, wow, if I was driving all the way from Kentucky, I might or might not want to eat there. But anyway, so just caveat, there's a lot of places that exist in the San Marcos area that may or may not have been mentioned.
All right. Well, where you want to start, man? The floor is yours.
All right. Well, let's first talk about the heat, right? I mean, that's not on the top 7, but it's something worthy of talking about. It's hot, and this summer has been like dry hot, over 100. And I thought, what could I do to like give someone like some encouragement? And like, just keep in mind that you could divide a Texas day in 4 parts, right? No matter how hot it's going to get, the mornings are still actually kind of nice, right? From dawn till about 10, you know, it's okay. Afternoon, avoid, right? From 1 till 4:30, if you feel your life is moving like too fast in front of your eyes, spend an afternoon outside right now and it'll feel like the longest day of your life. It just seems to get longer and hotter. But then phase 3 is like 4:35 when the heat breaks. And let me be clear on that. That doesn't mean it gets cool, right? Like that just means like it's not going to get any hotter today, right? But it's actually nice when that happens. And then finally, like right about, you know, 8 o'clock, 7:38, I don't care how hot it is in the day. It's beautiful. And I encourage people to, you know, maybe look forward to being out at that time when they're in San Marcos. Step out, go to a outside establishment, have a beer. It's absolutely beautiful. It's still warm, but it's really nice. So,
Brandon, when I went to the IPMS Nationals in 2000 in Dallas, it was 109 degrees. So I'm ready for it.
I'm not sure you're going to see 109. So you might even feel like it's a cool. You're down here during a cool snap.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to go that far.
No.
So where should we go?
Okay. during the podcast, I mentioned several places, but I kept going back to two specific areas. One is the square in San Marcos. And we covered off on a lot of places that exist on the square. We talked about the tap room and the front porch, which is like a sister bar pub kind of place. Zelik's Ice House. Did not mention Gill's Broil Burger, but that exists on the square. And also the Root Cellar Cafe. I guess my point is, if I was like, wow, I don't want to go far from the convention, but I want something local, and I want it to be really nice, but not stupidly priced. The square in San Marcos, it's a 10-minute. My God, you could Uber from the convention center. It's that close, and I think that's really nice because attendees could, get a beer at the tap room and then stroll over and have a cigar at the cigar vault, and then eat somewhere else because there's many places. Again, several places that I didn't mention on the podcast, but exist. So if anybody's listening out there, just remember San Marcos, the square. That's all you have to remember. And people, it's a known area. Get there. The next is Green, which is just a little bit further. It's actually on the Guadalupe River. It's an old town. I think we talked about it on one of the episodes. It's
Spell Green.
Oh man, Gruene. And it's really, like I said, 15 minutes away, and it's kind of connected to New Braunfels. People are going to hear the term New Braunfels, which is a sister city to San Marcos, but it's own little, for lack of better terms, a village. And it's a tourist destination. And the anchor point of Green, Texas is Green Hall, which is considered the oldest operating dance hall in the entire state of Texas. And although the Alamo gets a lot of like props as far as the place to go when you're in Texas, Green Hall to Texans is a pretty special place. They have live music, and I'm not, you don't necessarily have to go and put on a cowboy hat and listen to a band that night, but it's certainly something to understand is there. And then, right next door is the Green Grove, and of course the Goodwin Speakeasy in the basement of the Green Grove. It just could make a really good evening for attendees to say, hey, let's go on down to Green at 7:00 at night and walk around and see some things. There's a Cantina del Rio Mexican restaurant, and of course the Gristmill restaurant right there on the Guadalupe River. You couldn't go wrong. You could not go wrong with making that an evening on one of those nights.
Once we get to San Marcos, we're gonna have to
plan.
We're gonna shuffle the deck and figure out where we're going because we ain't hanging around the hotel all night.
No. So what's next?
In between Green, Texas, and the San Marcos Square is the Riley's Tavern that, if you remember, we talked about one episode. And Riley's Tavern holds and they're very proud of it, the Texas beer license #1. And Riley's Tavern is like, there's nothing else around it. It's kind of like in the middle of nowhere, yet it's 7 minutes from the convention center. And it's a real Texas saloon, if you will, that, man, I just think that like that would be some place that if you were not talking to a local, you wouldn't know is there. But it's like kind of a really friendly, like, hey, we're from Kentucky and we're coming in here. We'll sit down and have a beer, and friendly place. It's not, you might not make it like an all-nighter there, but at the same token, you might have a beer and then go on down to Green, or have a beer and then go on down the square to eat dinner, or vice versa, right, on the way back.
So we can take a 20-something-year-old Canadian kid in there, and
he'll be okay.
Not going to end up like the Blues Brothers.
No, man, like nobody's throwing beer bottles. At first glance, like you when you pull up, you might think that, right? I mean, because it's authentic, right? But like the times I've been in there, it's really your typical Texas. I don't know. Some people would call it dive bar, but that's an insult. In fact, if you went in there in a day, there'd be kids in there, right? Like parents would bring kids in the beer garden, that kind of thing. It's just a mellow place. And the last time we were there was actually live music again. So there's live music again. That may or may not be for for folks who are also trying to squeeze in a model convention, but it's definitely there.
Certainly adds the ambiance.
Yep, absolutely.
It's part of the experience.
And they don't serve just beer. I think they also have, or I know they have, they're not going to have like top shelf Kentucky whiskey, but you certainly could order a glass of Jack Daniels, I'm sure.
Well, we'll see when we get there. They might. You never know.
All right. Next, Fredericksburg and the Fredericksburg area. And we did not go into real deep detail about the Fredericksburg area, but there's a part of Texas that is not far from San Marcos, and attendees could make a day out of it, coming or going. The anchor point of Fredericksburg is a Chester Nimitz World War II Pacific War Museum. I know that the guys at Nationals have put together a trip on Thursday, August 3rd to the museum. I'm sure some people will want to take advantage of that and check that out. But I encourage attendees that, might be staying an extra day, coming in a day early or staying a day later. Man, that's a hell of a museum. And when I say a nice museum, they cover off on the Pacific War in granular detail. So I would encourage that. And then 15 minutes from Fredericksburg is the infamous Lukenbach, Texas.
I was looking at the map, and maybe I'm remembering wrong. Is that 15 minutes back towards San Marcos, though?
That is correct. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on the way home.
Yeah. And Lukenbach's cool. I mean, let's go to Lukenbach, Texas. I mean, it's a place and it exists, and people drink beer there. And
Waylon, Willie, and the boys.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And that's a place to say you've been, right? So that's the Fredericksburg area. Keep that in mind. The next is, and I'll throw out a little shameless plug. It's the home of the Winter Blitz Armor Modeling Contest.
Oh, certainly.
January 20th, 2024.
And we'll be promoting that again in the coming few months. But yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. The Museum of the American GI in College Station. It's too far. It's about I think an hour and a half maybe from San Marcos, but people coming from the East Coast, if you could manipulate your travels through College Station, it's a great stop. It's not nearly as big as the Nimitz Museum, but for armor guys, it packs a very powerful punch. I would say there's 30 plus operational and fully restored armored vehicles. And, it might be a nice place as you're heading in. Oh, wow, we're an hour and a half away from San Marcos, and let's stop in College Station and spend an hour and a half at the Museum of the American GI and check out the armor. Or, if you're in College Station, there's a lot of other things. I mean, it's a George Bush Library if you're into that kind of thing. And just College Station is a neat town as well. So Museum of the American GI in College Station, I recommend.
Isn't Texas A&M there?
Yes. Yep.
Go Aggies.
Shame on me for not mentioning that because that's where I went to school. But College Station, it's a cool place. It's a cool town. Last but not least is the barbecue wrap-up. And as we've been finalizing all this and talking to a lot of people from San Antonio, Rob Booth and I have been talking, people who live in Austin, at the end of the day, Dave, I know you mentioned Omaha and steak, right?
Yep.
Barbecue and this area of Texas that's what you should come for, right? I think it's fair to say that you're in the center point of the barbecue capital of Texas.
I'm excited about this.
Yeah, me too. I like barbecue.
Even when you get away from that area, that central Texas area, like Houston is not, it's good barbecue, but it's just not what it is out there. And so just keep that in mind. Kind of the three things to remember is Lockhart, Luling, and Seguin. Those are three towns. And those are three towns that if somebody said, I got to get out of this convention for a lunch, it's 25 minutes, each one of those towns. It's just not far. And it's kind of like out in the country away from everything, these towns. They're small towns. Luling has a place called City Market, which I think I've never had a better link, and their sauce is beyond good. I mean, this is a great place. I'm not as familiar with what exists in Lockhart, but Lockhart, there are people who claim that is the center point of barbecue. There's Black, Smitty's Market, Croyd's Market, and Lockhart, and then Seguin. This is the one that everybody's talking about. I think this it's called Burnt Beans in Seguin, Texas.
Yeah, Rob Booth is all about this one.
Yeah, he is. And as a matter of fact, I talked to Rob, and my wife and I were out in San Marcos like a week ago. So I got to go check this place out. And we went there, and they were on vacation. Like, yeah,
it's a buzzkill.
There's no barbecue here today for anybody. And it was like, okay, what do we do now? Well, someone said there's this newer place called Schultz's Pit House. And so we went over to the Schultz's Pit House in Seguin, Texas, which is located right off I-10. You can see I-10 from it. And I will say, hands down, that was unbelievably a good experience. It just was like their sides. And when you talk to barbecue people, they'll quickly say, how are the sides? A coleslaw, beans, potato salad. And that really kind of separates the men from the boys in regards to good Texas barbecue. And Schultz's Pit House is certainly something that, I personally could recommend, having literally just enjoyed a good dinner there. One caveat on Texas barbecue and the finer craft Texas barbecue is people have to keep in mind that they do sell out, right? It's a bit of a...
Yes, I'm quite familiar with this.
Yeah. Did you get burned? Did you get...
Well, the quote unquote chain places have trucks bringing crap, and they never run out.
Right.
A real independent operated craft place, if you want to call it that, which I would, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, the meat's expensive to start with raw, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they get it. So they're not going to speculate too far down the road as how much they're going to serve in an evening or a day. So, yeah, if you don't get there at a decent time, they're not going to have ribs. They're not going to have brisket, or the chickens are all going to be gone, or whatever they're doing. Their top menu items are going to be sold out.
That's correct.
If you roll in there at 6:45, yeah, you're picking over what's left on the menu. Maybe it's not that early, but I've experienced that early.
Yeah, I might even go as far as some of these, and I can't speak for any of these places in Littling, Lockhart, or Seguin, but I've even heard some of these places, the higher end in Austin, of course, Franklin's Barbecue, everybody talks about, that like 9 a.m. in the morning, they run out, right? Like people wait in line overnight. And, listen, man.
Yeah, it's getting crazy there.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to give a guy a fighting chance to get lunch.
Yeah.
I don't recommend that waiting in line at 6 a.m. for my barbecue. It can't be that. Nothing could be that good. But no. Yeah. So just keep that in mind that if somebody was going to say, let's run over to Lockhart for barbecue, the earlier, it might be a lunch thing. It might be the right thing.
You better go early. Yes, I fully comprehend what you're doing here, man. It is absolutely the truth. Yeah. And to add my own experience, I was born in South Carolina. I was raised in Tennessee, and I live in Kentucky. I am a pretty much dyed-in-the-wool Southerner. I've enjoyed barbecue my entire life from childhood, growing up. I don't have a favorite because South Carolina is different than North Carolina, is different than Virginia, is different than Tennessee, is different than Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Texas. It's all a little bit different. You can find a favorite in all those places. Texas is something I've never experienced, so I am freaking so stoked to go pick one of these places and double down, get some barbecue, get some beer, and see what this is all about, because I really like barbecue.
It will be different, but it'll be good. And for the win, like what we did the other day when we were on our 003 field trip to Seguin, I brought my wife and her sister and her husband, so there was 4 of us, and we just ordered big and kind of did at the table a la carte sample. Does that make sense?
Yes, yep.
And you might do that, right? Bring 4 guys that your modeling friends, and get the ribs, get the sausage, get the brisket,
and just
then let's sit at
all
the
dive in and eat it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Being in Kentucky now, it's as hard as it is for me to swallow and say this, and as a Texan, you might find this completely foreign and even ridiculous. But in Western Kentucky, there's a little town called Owensboro.
Oh yeah, Moonlight.
And Owensboro, by somebody's metric, is the barbecue capital of the world. Believe it or not.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And the person who told me this, I told them that there are two ways you get to be the barbecue. You get to be the capital of whatever of the world. You either have the best or you have the most. So they must have a whole lot of barbecue in Owensboro, Kentucky, because I guarantee you it's not the best.
It's listen. To defend Kentucky's honor, barbecue in Owensboro is really, really good. But again, the point you made is right. It's different. Kentucky barbecue is different than Kansas City barbecue, different from North Carolina, South Carolina. Everybody puts their own spin on it. So I love going to Owensboro.
Looking forward to it.
The analogy that I came up with today while I was thinking about this call was some people build in 135th, some people build in 172nd, and some people build in 116th, and it's all good. And that's the way barbecue is. It's all good.
Yep.
Well, it's not all good.
Yeah. Well,
To a point.
I'm looking forward
I tell you,
to
bad barbecue is like the most disappointing thing ever.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
and what a great segue, right? Stay the heck out of a chain, right? I mean,
Yeah.
That's right.
I know my friend Mike Stucker called in or emailed in to mention Buc-ee's, right? Like, stop at Buc-ee's, but if you buy a barbecue sandwich from Buc-ee's, you get what you deserve.
Yeah. Yep. I'm looking forward to gaining a few pounds and trying a few places that are local.
There you
Because
go.
the local color is what does it, what rounds out making a great convention.
All right, Brandon, we'll bring us home here, man.
All right, let's do it. Let's take you home. So Rob Booth has asked me to fire up some activity on the IPMS Nationals Facebook page, and it may or may not. Some of your listeners may or may not. That might be a great thing for people to join, because there's going to be a lot of conversation. There is a lot of conversation going on.
Well, I've already seen your posts.
Yeah, there's a lot of local people are starting to pitch in and mention things that I haven't talked about. So there's some good dialogue on there, and I certainly would encourage Mojovians to take a look at that. And then final in the 003 wrap up. A shout out to my friend Rudy and Danielle at Lionheart Hobby in Kyle, Texas, which is very close to the convention. And I know some people said, are we going to go over to Lionheart Hobby? But I know that Rudy and Danielle are basically bringing their hobby shop to Nationals. They're going to have a big setup.
Yep.
Yeah. And these guys support Region 6 and our shows. They're at all the shows in a big way. Good people, and I just wanted to use this moment to just a shout out to Lionheart Hobby and attendees. Man, go in and say hello to Danielle and Rudy, and see what you can find at their hobby shop in the convention center.
Well, I'll double down and encourage folks to give them a double look, and if there's anything you can justify from them as a purchase, go for it.
Yep.
I appreciate that.
No, you're welcome.
Can't wait to lift a beer with you in Texas.
I'm looking forward to it, man. We're fortunate we could be this excited about something, aren't we?
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yes, we are. This one's a little more special than the last two because this one got canceled, and they've had a couple extra years to stir up the excitement about it and solidify the attendance and the vendor participation, all that. And I think this is going to be a good one.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
I think so.
All right. Well, Brandon, Agent 003, you've done an exemplary job. We appreciate it. We know where we're going to be looking to go for dinner and get a couple of beers or whatever. And it's all been great. And I thank you for playing along for the last, it's almost a year now, probably.
Yep.
Hey, I've had fun, man. I appreciate y'all entertaining my wackiness, and I actually learned a few things about San Marcos myself that I didn't know, so I feel fortunate.
We're looking forward to seeing you there.
When the leaves start turning colors, hit us up again for your show at College Station.
Winter Blitz, will do. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sure we're going to take in some of that stuff. We got to get Evan some good barbecue.
Yes.
I really want some really good chili. I'm a big fan of chili, so
Me
I'm
too.
looking forward to that.
We'll probably find that as well. I tend to eat more of that in the wintertime, but you're only in Texas every now and then if you're not from there. Well, what broke your wallet? This is a special edition. This is our Nats 2023 What Broke Your Wallet, which is more like what's gonna break your wallet, kind of a Nats vendor room show wish list. Anybody got their eye on anything they hope to pick up while we're in San Marcos?
Oh God, there's so, I do go with I used to go with a long list. I plan meticulously. And I found that in general, what I ended up coming home with bore real little relation to what I was thinking about acquiring while I was there. But there are some things I want to take a look at buying. There's a lot of aftermarket 3D cockpits. I want to try and pick up a Vargas Matilda 1. It's the stuff that I didn't plan on buying that are usually the things that I consider the best purchases at the National. Something where you walk by the table and it grabs your eye either because it's something unique or it's something that you wanted and it's a really good price. I could pick up another ICM KI-21. There's just bunches of stuff. How about you, Evan? What are you looking for?
Well, a couple weeks ago, I went through my whole stash, looked through everything, and I kind of came to the conclusion that, I think I've got a pretty good collection here, and there's not really anything I'm looking for, and it's complete nonsense because, like you said, when you're at the show, you see things and you're like, I need that. Yes. I want that, and you've never thought about it before. Specifically, I'm actually on my ScaleMates wish list page right now. There's a few projects I've kind of wanted to do for a while. So I want to do a proper early Russian BT tank. I actually have an interior set on the way from MR Model Bow for that. So I want to get a Hobby Boss BT. I also have for a while wanted to do a Dieppe Churchill, Canadian Churchill too. There. And AFV Club has a kit of that I've been looking for kind of off and on for a while. So that might catch my eye. And then there's always, like you said, 3D printed details, photo etch. There's always stuff there for good prices that you just get it for a couple bucks, and that's going to serve you maybe in a couple of years, honestly. But it's so cheap that you might as well just have it around, right?
Well, and one of the advantages for Mike and I driving both down and back is that unlike some conventions where you've flown in, size is not a limit. Size or weight are not limiting factors. And so
rub it in.
Well, there are things we can do if you find something where you can haul it back and arrange transfer. It's going to work out. So, but it is nice not to have that limitation for this show, so that if I find that Das Works U9, which I've been meaning to pick up since they released it 2.5 years ago, if I find it for a good price, I'm just going to buy it.
I hope he finds it for a good price. I'm going to film it.
Yeah, it's going to be in your lap on the ride back.
Yeah, I mean, if there's stuff you find, Evan, that you really think is 2 and 3 years out, we could always just bring it to Heritage Con next March.
Exactly.
That's true, actually. That'd be a good idea. I bought stuff at Nats last year that's still in the box, right? Like I bought that Vargas M777 and it's still sitting here. But
Evan, I think I've repeated on the show before, I tend to bring stuff home from Nationals and leave it in the suitcase when I get home. And then I unpack the suitcase like 60 days later, and it's like Christmas all over again. You get it a second time because you kind of forgot some of the things that you bought.
I don't know, man.
Maybe that's just me. So how about you, Mike?
Oh, Mr. Vargas better have more than one of those Matildas, or we're going to have to duke it out, man.
Yep.
That's one I'm after, too. I like that one. It's kind of funky looking with the exposed tracks. And
I I'm honestly not a fan of the Matilda 1 as much as I am the Matilda 2, but if I see at the table there and both you guys get it, I might have to get one as well. We'll see.
Peer pressure.
He'll buy the only one, and we'll have to.
Yeah, that's right. He'll buy the only one and leave us hanging.
They'll be really glad he's flying home.
Yeah, that's right.
Other than that, I was hoping that the round 2 AMT branded 30-second scale TIE fighter was going to be on the streets by Nats, but I don't think it's going to be.
No, I don't think so.
If it is, maybe be picking up a sci-fi kit. I hope that MC202 is not at the show. I hope that thing is not there.
I don't think it's going to be.
I don't need that.
But you want it.
But you want it. That's right. And, one other thing that I'm probably looking at is some of those 70-second scale Vespid armor kits. I came darn close at Heritage Con to buying one or two of those. And the one thing I regretted when we left Heritage Con was that I didn't pull the trigger on those. So if I see them at the Nats,
they'll be there. Somebody will have some.
Yeah, somebody will have them, and they're probably coming home with me.
Hey, remember our deal? If you build a 70-second scale armor kit, I'll build some kind of aircraft or something.
Yep, no problem. I'm going to do that. That's an easy one. I want to find somebody. I'm hoping Vespid's going to suddenly come out with 70-second scale Stugs.
Yes.
Because I'd love to do nothing better than a 70-second scale Stug, and then you tell me that no, this particular tie clamp was only on the X factory version from 43 to 44. When Hans was there eating sausages or whatever variation of it that you know.
I know you joke, but some of those features, I've got them down to the week they were introduced. It helps when they paint the hull numbers on the front of the vehicles, right?
Right. But
yes,
by the same token, it's amazing that they were making changes that regular.
Well, that's just manufacturing. It was just a constant state of either improvement or
simplification past a
simplification. Yeah, simplification and stopgap and you name it. That's just the way it works. Anybody got anything else they're hoping to find? I don't know. I need some. I usually buy a tool of some kind.
I will buy a tool of some kind, and I will. I can almost guarantee you, if you want to play, if you want the surest bet on the planet. The surest bet on the planet is I'm going to come away from the Nationals with the decal sheet, not counting the Nationals decal sheet.
I was about to say, well, that's an easy bet. You're going to get one in your registration package.
An additional one to that.
I'm sure you will.
So there's actually a couple things I've just realized here. I've been looking for the Bronco Turan or Zrini Hungarian tank and tank destroyer. And I also need a proper razor saw for resin parts now that I'm actually getting a little bit serious on resin. So I'm sure there'll be a good tool supplier there for resin.
You got to get the one.
UMM USA.
Yeah, UMM's going to be there, and they've got one that's I really like.
The JVC saw is really, really good.
All right, you point it out. I'll pick it up.
Okay.
In keeping with the theme of the National Convention, another one of our show sponsor and a sponsor of some of the other podcasts out there, Bases by Bill, stopped by for a conversation this past week as well. We'd hope to talk to him mostly about the show, but it kind of went free form, and that was good. We learned a lot about their business, and let's hear what the team at Bases by Bill had to say. Well, Dave, in anticipation for the 2023 IPMS National Convention in San Marcos, Texas, we've got one of the vendors there and a sponsor of the show. We've got Bases by Bill, who we're glad to have with us tonight.
Yeah.
And
I am looking forward to seeing these guys down at San Marcos. And I can assure you they will probably lighten my wallet a little bit before it's all over.
Well, gentlemen, first off, let me say we appreciate you being a sponsor of the show. I know got some sponsorship with several of our our fellow podcasts, which we all have amicable friendships with, and it's all cool. And we appreciate that your business is in fact recognized this medium as a viable option to advertise your product. So that said, I'm going to turn to Christian Gurney, who has been my liaison to Bases by Bill. And Christian, how you doing tonight? And tell me about your team, and let's get some introductions here.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Christian Gurney. Bases by Bill actually is a family business. Bill Wiedeward, who the business is named after, is one of the co-founders, along with his son and my nephew, Weston Wiedeward. My mother is Bill's sister. And, it's not usual these days to have a family business, but that's what we're doing. I'll just quickly say my role and then turn it over to Bill and Weston. I'm primarily handling the marketing, our internet efforts, and then I also do a lot of work in preparing artwork for our lasering and other processes in making the various products that have insignias, unit patches, and things like that. I've been a modeler most of my life, but took a big break between college and getting the first kids off to high school and college. I primarily do 48 scale aircraft, and I am currently active in that. So let me turn it over now to Weston, our chief engineer.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Weston Wiedeward. I'm the engineer of the group. Basically, any CNC work, 3D printing, original idea of the laser engravers, multiple laser engravers we've gone through over the course of this business. My role is kind of new product design, coming up with new efficient ways to make product, kind of coming up with some more of the eccentric side of the business, some, all the way from finials, all the way to display case lighting, you name it, I do it. Degreed mechanical engineer from Milwaukee School of Engineering. I graduated back in 2016. Currently work in fluid power. That's my professional career. Up in Sturgeon Bay right now, but primarily the engineer of the group and making new products, coming up with new ideas and going to execute them.
So let's take you to the factory foreman who runs the factory at the world headquarters in Waterloo, Wisconsin. We're all based in Wisconsin.
We couldn't tell from the accents.
And puts his name on it.
And puts his name on it.
Yes, somebody's got to do it. Bases by Bill is fine, I guess. Yes, I'm Bill, and came up with the idea for bases a while ago. Yeah, I've been a modeler for most of my life. Got Wes into it when he was young in a club here in Madison, and I don't know. I always loved the woodworking part of it, and I like modeling too. But boy, I thought, can I do something together? Can I get them together? So I just came up with a rudimentary. It was a Balkan cruise. I think I may have told you this story, but I glued up different colored pieces of wood to make a Balkan cruise. Flattened it, brought it to a meeting, and boy, everybody really thought it was something that there might be something a future with this. So from there on, just made some ship bases, figure bases, other things. Weston's watching from the sidelines and thought, boy, if we got a laser to do some of this stuff, helping us with masks for painting, engraving, nameplates, things on there. So we got this tiny laser. It was only a foot by a foot, and quickly outgrew that. Then we got a 2 by 2 foot one. Well, we outgrew that. And I think the one we have now is, I think it can go 20 by 15 inches, something like that. Much more capable than the other ones, much more power than the other little desktop kind. That's where it all started, just all the different things, different ideas. We thought, well, let's just try it, let's make a sample, take it in. Let's make a sample, take it to a show. Early on, we went to a lot of shows. We went to a lot of the shows in our area, Illinois, Minnesota. And it got to the point now where it's hard to get away for a day or even two to go to a show. So we just do nationals. And, we've done, I think our first nationals was Chattanooga. And we went to Vegas and Omaha. Now I think this will be our fourth. and really enjoy it. It's people have as they've discovered us off of the internet, off of Facebook, doing their searches, finding us, giving us examples of things to do, and then again seeing us in person, seeing what we do, able to run your hands over what we have, and realize that there's quite a bit of different things we can do for display to finish up what you have started with a beautiful model that you've put all that time and effort in. And so yeah, very much looking forward to San Marcos. A little bit of a drive, not as bad as Vegas. That for us, Vegas was Vegas, going through the canyon there by Denver and Vail, and boy,
that was the Rocky Mountains. That was I had never seen the Rocky Mountains in my life, and that was where's the horizon? Oh, it's all the way up there.
Well, we almost saw them in person. There were a couple rock slides that we had to wait for, and you could see where. I'm telling how are people not dying from that, because they just literally took part of the road away,
right into the Colorado
fence,
River.
Right into the river. It's just like how are people not dying here?
It happens with regularity.
Oh my Lord, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's but anyway, that was quite a trip. Good show. And yes, we are very much looking forward to San Marcos. This will be Christian's first time with us with the business. I don't know if he's been to other nationals, but it'll be great having three of us there. And Christian can check out the vendors and see what it's all about.
Yeah, this actually will be my first time. Believe it or not. So I'm looking forward to it for both dimensions. One's meeting our customers, and others is to experience IPMS Nationals.
Bill, Wes, while Christian's walking around the show, I want you to take lots of pictures of him to show him later, to show him how big his eyes are throughout the show.
And his mouth.
Bill, if you don't mind me asking, I'm always curious about the business side of the hobby, the back side of the hobby. Mm-hmm. Was woodworking a hobby for you, or was it your profession?
No, it was a hobby. Back when they used to have industrial arts in high school, I took all the woodworking classes, some design work, some for our construction work, and just fell in love with using the tools, the turning lathe and planers and just you got a stack of wood over there, you got an idea in your head, and you just make something. This idea that, well, I have to have a design for it. I have to get, somebody's got to do it before me, and it's just no way. It's just go ahead and do it. Cut things to fit. Get things lined up. Finish them up. And find out if somebody likes it, somebody enjoys it, and if not, okay, next one, next thing.
I assume that when you took that first base to your first club meeting, that it was in no way in your head that you were going to build a business the size of what you built. I mean, this wasn't a plan, was it? Did it? Or did it just develop organically, or
certainly not at that time? We were it was really one-dimensional until we got the laser and the 3D printer and the CNC machine. And like I've always said, there's so much trial and error going on, figuring out where to get a good source of really kiln-dried cherry at a decent price, and you can rely on it. That was one thing. All the boxes, all the packing material. Will this make it, from here to Washington State kind of thing?
Right.
Just a tremendous amount of trial and error to find out if you can do it. Shipping. The other thing when we, Wes basically made me, Bill, Dad, you gotta figure out how to make a big display case and make it such that it's disassemble and a customer can easily assemble it, and we got to be able to ship it there safely. And he kept on me, and I thought, okay, all right, let's do it. I think he's right. And boy, once we were able to overcome all of that, getting boxes big enough, making sure you could package up the plexiglass to make it, and boy, that opened up. Then you thought to yourself, somebody just put in an order for a $700 Titanic case with lights, and they just paid it.
Yeah,
A couple orders like that, and I was breathless. It really was. It was incredible. Great feelings.
To go back to Dave's question, though, how it kind of started, the first Balkan cruise he made, he took it to the meeting, and we took it, I think it was just slightly before the Mad City Modelers show in March, and that was like 5 years ago, I think, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And just the reception of the bases, and I think he had some plain bases and stuff, just the reception from the club members and then the community at large that attended the show, they had wide eyes. They're like, wow, so you made that? That's incredible. And looking back on it, I mean, this stuff is pretty simple and straightforward compared to the products we make now. But really, I kind of had the idea, and my dad did too, where this is a market that just isn't being filled. There's you got modelers, who want to have a simple display base, a simple board.
Oh, yeah.
That you can put your groundwork on, a nameplate, whatever, and they're either having to go buy a picture frame at their Michaels or their craft store, whatever they have, and make it work, or they're making their own kind of a hodgepodge thing. But
or even the trophy shop can only do so much.
Yeah, exactly. And relying on, everybody sees the stereotypical display base with a brass nameplate. I mean, that look has been overdone to the nth degree. And I would say, bases by Bill, we don't support brass nameplates because we've seen them done just a ludicrous amount. But the whole point is that it was a market that wasn't being fulfilled. We understood it, or I believe we understand it pretty darn well, because we got a wide variety of modeling talent amongst the three of us. And I'm telling you, the quality of the bases, the wood choice, the finishes, the effort my dad goes through to sand it, polyurethane it, sand it again. The wood is incredible. I mean, working with American cherry, walnut, maple at times. We don't do oak normally. I mean, we can, but just the quality of the wood, the quality of the finishes, even just a simple base from us. I would challenge the competition to make a base as good as his, even just a simple board, for the prices he can do it. It's truly something to behold.
Your closing statement there about the price is really gets back to where we first ran into you guys, which was at Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because not only would we see your efforts there for the first time, but we'd met a lot of the fellow podcast shows out there, their hosts, for the first time ever face to face, because all this kind of came to a swell during 2020 during the pandemic. Amongst us, it was a topic of conversation. It was the quality versus the price position that you guys were offering was to say that it was thought to be reasonable is an understatement. It was really, we're thinking, we were wondering if you guys were doing this as a charity endeavor, to be honest.
Well, I did famously walk up to the folks at Bases by Bill and tell them straight to their face they were undercharging.
Yeah.
And I relayed that to Christian. So, I mean, that's the thing. We've talked about it. I've gone kind of back and forth with Christian too on it, where, yeah, we're making money, I guess, on it. I don't think we're necessarily, once we start hiring, if we get to the point we start hiring people, we have, prices are going to have to go up to pay for labor. But until then, some of our things, the cases, for a big Titanic case, we want $600. It is worth $600
Sure.
for us to, Other than that, yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to give away a Titanic case for $250 or something. But
well, you just discounted it by $100. It's a $700 case.
Well, that's with lights.
That's with lights.
That's the lights. So there's some things. I'm the guy doing them, so I know what base requires a lot of retaping and extra work. You have a base that has like 6 or 7 or 8 colors on it. Yeah. I'm spraying 6 or 7 or 8 colors on it somehow. Yeah. And I'm hand painting what I can't get at. So all of that takes a great deal of time. Boy, I think I told Christian that VT3 base, that Vindicator base for with the dragon on it. Boy, I really don't want to ever do one of them again. Tremendous amount of taping, tremendous. And so I'm going to want $40 or $45 for it at least, because it took a lot of time.
Back to that price point discussion just a little bit. I mean, some of the products we have to be aggressive on, like a display base, just a plain board, plain cherry board, routed, sanded, finished, stained, the whole 9 yards, no laser engraving. I mean, you have to be somewhat aggressive on it.
Right.
What we found in the modeling community, and this is not to bash the modeling community at all, but modelers are frugal. I mean, modelers in general are the type of people. I mean, they're able to build these wonderful, magnificent pieces of art, and it is art, absolutely. They take years in the making to make some of these things, and sometimes they're making these things from scratch. So it's not. For some of the folks, it's not a massive leap and bound. Okay, I make this beautiful ship. Well, where am I going to put it? I have to put it on something, and they have a plan, they have a strategy to do so. And on a plain base, you have to be aggressive, because that is a lower valued item in their minds versus a display case. A display case is a whole different animal. I mean, there's a significant amount of work that goes into the cutting of the posts, the top frame, the bottom frame assembly, and getting the plexiglass, going through all the rigmarole to source it, going through the fitment. We have a system now where we've done plenty of them. Get the fitment right on it, and then make it so it's broken down and shippable. That was the real nightmare with the display case.
And make sure that when the customer gets it, he's not overwhelmed and it'd be some sort of saga to get the thing together. But they're pretty straightforward. We made a video for it. Wes and I, one of the very first cases we did for a couple in New Mexico, they had a Titanic, one of the first Titanics, and we made a walnut case that sat on their mantle, and it had to be a certain size. They had lights. And I thought, boy, okay, here we go. So we pack it all up. We made the video and sent it to them. And boy, they got it together. I think they got it together that day once they got it. Mm-hmm. And thrilled. So I thought, okay, pass that test. So
I think, Dave, what's really driven, there's a couple of turning points. Well, first of all, what we're doing is Wes and I are both full-time employed beyond 40 hours a week. So there's finite amounts of time, effort, and energy that we can devote. Bill has recently retired, and this is the thing that is keeping him healthy and active and giving him longevity. How you scale that's always going to be a challenge. But for us, there's a couple of things that have driven the business. First was the design of the display cases such that they could be shipped in the U.S. and actually even into Europe or Australia. The second was coming up with a marketing program to get the name out there. And that our first advertising was and continues with ScaleMates, simply for name recognition.
Yeah.
The third part was marketing the display cases for specific manufacturers' ships or tanks. We'll get to what we're bringing that's new to nationals here in a minute. But one of them, Andy's hobby headquarters with the 16th series of armor that he's been producing. We've got a new case for that, for the Sherman and for the Stug. And some of those other things, the Tiger. But by naming the cases, Bill referred to it as the Titanic case. Well, when Trumpeter released that 1/200th scale Titanic, that was the kit. It has problems, it has flaws, but immediately you saw decking, you saw photo etch kits for it, and you saw people embarking on a multi-year project to build those. When we decided to market it as a case for the Titanic 1/200th from Trumpeter, that's when things really started to move. And so we subsequently applied that kind of branding to the other 200 scale models available from Trumpeter, and we've moved it into other things. Then the final thing was making the leap with podcasts. You were the first, and we liked it so much that we chose a couple others actually at random. I think more than anything else. I don't want Will Pattison to be mad at me. But that has done a lot. Now there's probably people that have listened to The Geeks, your podcast, and Plastic Posse, and they're hearing roughly the same story about our company, but they're listening again. And so it's really a great opportunity to reach people in a medium where, you can just talk like a real person and do this. So right now our strategy is to reinvest in the business. We always are looking for ways of being more efficient, investing in new equipment. We're investing in another laser setup because of the volume. And also we need redundancy. Our awards business for the clubs, the regional clubs, the individual clubs has picked up quite a bit, and that continues to grow. So it all sort of feeds into one another. And eventually we're going to be at a place where doing the bases that have insignia or things like that, it'll probably be a different process. We're not really going to talk about that tonight in terms of detail, but there's only so far that hand painting, even via masking, can go. And the problem with those is that there's an infinite number of possibilities because there's an infinite number of air, sea, and land units.
Sure.
To pick up. So, I think we kind of do a lot of blocking and tackling, and we also do an awful lot of listening because the ideas have to come from this market. So Dave, I think, this whole hobby area, there are a few people that can go and build a business plan and go to their banker and raise startup funding. I think so much of this is just starting with people having a passion and doing sort of a cottage industry. And for some of them, it's enough to be a lifestyle enhancer. For others, as we've seen, sometimes, a lot of the resin guys now, or if they don't have the skills or the motivation to get into 3D printing, they're starting to fade away because their products, there's some excellent ones out there, but there's also a lot of not excellent ones out there. And I know that Mike's got a few in his stash he's talked about, but, eventually some of that stuff just runs out of steam, just kind of like modelers do, right?
That's right.
Losing the mojo. So I think to the point where we can keep it fun and not be worrying about meeting payroll every week. I think it's a good thing. How big can it get? I have no idea.
I had some questions around the podcast selection, and you've pretty much answered those, so I'm not going to rehash those. So let's just move on to the big dance here and what we're all anticipating. We're all going to San Marcos, Texas. We've both got a pretty good drive we're going to have to take. What you guys got going on special for San Marcos?
I'll cover some non-product things first for us just to get these out of the way. We have donated a case to the raffle. So if you're participating in the raffle, you have an opportunity to get one of our Astro cases, a fairly large one. Also, in the spirit of modeling itself, we're a name sponsor of the Plastic Posse group build, the Mackay group build. So we're happy to be part of that. Opened my eyes to a whole genre of modeling I had no idea about. It's really fascinating.
It is.
And with that, I'm going to stop talking and have Bill, because he's got the list. He knows what we're bringing to the Nats that's new.
I
or
do
he's
have a
in the
list.
process of making it. Or it's being made between now and the 31st. Yeah.
Yeah, time is short, and there's a couple projects that are going to be right down to the wire. But giving you an idea of what we have, there'll be a tremendous amount of figure bases. I would say, honestly, if we put all the figure bases out, it would fill a full table. I have a lot of them and a lot of different sized bases. So plenty of figure bases. Another new thing that I came out with last fall, once we got back, are a different line of car bases. The bases all incorporate, there's a little spinner on the rims of Fords and Alfa Romeos that in the middle. You can get them relatively cheap. I've incorporated that spinner into the base. So I think there's 4 or 5 different ones of those. Turret bases, because there's so many. Right now, I just saw of course, the Yamato, the Bruno, and the USS Iowa, the 16-inch gun bases. We have one of each of those that we'll have for the contest, and that is something new that we've put on the website. The other thing we have a Sherman case, cherry Sherman case, and I am feverishly working on 2 Tiger cases that I would like to have down there. They're basically a little bit wider, I believe they're 24 by 16 by 12 is a Tiger case, and I'm hoping that it fits it. I just like I say, I just made it a little wider. I don't think the silhouette is any taller than a Sherman. I could be wrong, but I just picked up the plexiglass today and cut the sides, and so it'll be right down to the last. Polyurethane might be wet on the drive down. So the other thing we came up with is World War II carrier deck bases.
Nice.
I have some, I think 2 or 3 U.S. carrier and probably 2 or 3 Japanese carrier deck bases. We just had a gentleman that wanted Marsden mat, and Christian was able to get a file for the laser to burn that. So I made a couple of the Marsden mats. One of them I tried to color. I'm not sure exactly how well it looks or accurately. So anyway, these will be, for the purchaser to add to it or not, whatever he wants. We have a lot of new painted logo bases from customers over the last year. Usually I think it's a neat base. It's a good subject. I'm making it one for the customer. At the same time, I'll make a second one for inventory. So there should be quite a few of them.
We've got two examples for the 1/32 scale Trumpeter Devastator.
Yes. Yep. I was going to get to those. Yep. One is the I think it's VT3, with the fire breathing dragon, and the other one is it's something riding a bomb. I think that's VT5. But anyway, so we have those. I think are 14 or 15 inch bases. So those are more than take a Devastator. The other thing too, nameplates. I've talked about this where somebody will come up. Well, do you have the USS Minneapolis? And I'll dig through and I'm not sure. And I thought, I am going to try to make a nameplate for every ship that I think has got a model kit of it. So honestly, I am going to say I've got 1,000 nameplates of Japanese World War II, British World War I, Imperial Navy, some modern, all the carriers. I got 1/350th scale carrier nameplates, big ones. We also have a lot of Star Wars. I have a lot of the Imperial logo that we laser cut out some plexi and brass nailed it to a red backer board, so it looks awesome. You could put anything Imperial on that, and it's going to look awesome. Several mirror bases. That was something else that people wanted. Some circular mirror bases, the Devastator bases, and then a gentleman was asked about doing a Blue Angels base. So anyway, he didn't get back to us in time, and I thought, well, Christian got me the logo, so I did a Blue Angels base, and that really looks awesome. It's really a cool.
It's a great logo.
It is. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And one last thing, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to let this rabbit out of the hat or not, but we are going to be delivering at Nationals the awards for New Zealand's Nationals.
They advertised that. That was advertised on Facebook.
Yeah, I just, well, like I say, that what they posted on their Facebook site that we were doing the awards, and so we're going to deliver their awards to them at Nationals, and they're going to do their best to get them in their suitcases and get them home. So
I can just imagine the TSA agent looking at that.
Well, at least it's wood.
Yeah.
And and Weston's going to finish up their main award this weekend. And once we deliver them, we'll put pictures up. But it is going to be awesome. It is really going to be worthy of a best of show for a Nationals, New Zealand or otherwise.
Is there a Kiwi anywhere on the award?
There is not.
Oh, no.
No, there is not. The other ones are real, I wouldn't say simple. The other awards, they're very happy with. They have special awards.
Quick, laser engraved one on the back.
Yeah, there you go.
Hurry.
No, the one thing I did on their best of show, and I sent it to Weston, is I laser engraved their national anthem on the back of their award.
Cool.
So it's if you ever get a chance, I think it's only 8 lines long. Look it up. It is a very cool, very honorable national anthem, and I engraved that on the back of their awards. So I think they'll really love them. But yeah,
we considered a Kiwi, but my guess is those guys have been Kiwi'd to death.
Yeah. They probably kicked Kiwis out of the way on their way to work. So
probably.
Yeah. So we left that for them to request. And they didn't bring it up. So we did not do the Kiwi this time.
And there's another thing too. What I'm going to do. There's a gentleman. We did a base for him. Actually, there's 2. They were thinking about at some point getting a big case from us, a Titanic or another case. And I'm going to bring some pieces and parts so that we can demonstrate. Because I think some people are kind of freaked out. This might be a little too much to put together. I might have a $600, $800 pile of wood and plexi here. So anyway, we'll show you how they go together, how easy it goes together. We're bringing for a gentleman. He bought a USS Constitution sailing ship case, and it's a monster. It's 42 by 39 by 16, and we have that boxed up. And he's picking it up there also. So we just like to allay your fears on these big cases, that they can be shipped to you. They're wonderful. They arrive safely. They're easy to put together. You can give us a call, watch the video. They're pretty straightforward, and any modeler can put them together. No problem.
All right, guys. I think we'll wrap up here, and I want to say thank you first for sponsoring our show and all the other shows as well that you're sponsoring. We really appreciate it. I'm pleased personally, I'm sure they are too, that you've recognized this podcast as a viable medium to advertise your business, and it looks like you're having success. So we're glad to be a part of that, in whatever small part we can. We certainly look forward. Yep. We certainly look forward to seeing you guys on the vendor floor in San Marcos, and maybe we can see you a little bit after hours, maybe.
Absolutely,
and,
sure.
Shoot the breeze, and
they get a VIP ticket to the dojo.
Okay, sure.
And by the way, I like to drink beer too sometimes. So.
Oh
okay.
No.
Well, Mike, I wonder if we could just give people a little plug as to where we're going to be in the vendor room.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's real easy. Go to the vendor room that has Edward and just keep walking to the other aisle, and you will find us. We are directly across from Edward this year.
Well, that'll be convenient.
Popular spot. That's going to be the vendor rooms. All three of them, as it's shaping up, is going to be quite the affair. So, gentlemen, thank you again for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you, and look forward to seeing you in Texas.
You bet. Thanks, Mike and Dave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't wait,
Thank
guys.
you very much.
We've sure hyped the national convention as much as we can in this episode.
And we've still undersold it. I'm telling
Yeah.
everybody who is attending for the first time, no matter how much I've oversold the nationals, I've undersold it.
I can agree to that because I was in that boat last year. Last year was my first nationals, and you undersold it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going back, right?
That's right.
And TJ in Las Vegas.
Yeah, TJ in Las Vegas was, he was walking around with his eyes just wide open.
Look forward to seeing all those guys.
I do too.
Well, we've got a little time, and I don't know why this one came through my head again, but we've never really talked in much depth about 3D printing. Now, we're not going to get into the technical aspects of the CAD design and the slicer programs and all that, but just kind of a state of the art look at 3D printing in our hobby right now, because things are starting to move as far as what all's out there. It's starting to impact some show rules and things like that. So what do you think? We got some opinions here, maybe.
I think you have to separate it into two distinct things. Aftermarket items, in other words, things that you add to a plastic kit to enhance the kit, and 3D printed kits themselves, either single piece prints, more akin to like a miniatures bust, or a multi-piece kit that that is printed and then you assemble and paint, much like a traditional plastic kit.
Well, I actually want to back up a little bit further than that, and I've kind of split this into three kind of main topic areas. And the first one is just the general acceptance of this technology and methodology in our hobby, and where that's come from and where it's going. And the reason I make this one first is because it was a listener mail we got after the IPMS Nationals in Las Vegas, so 2021. Now, I'm not going to get into who sent me this and all that. It's because it was them expressing their opinions toward me or to me, and I'm just going to use it as a topic or point of conversation. At that show, the best space was a fairly large scale lunar landing module from the Apollo missions.
Right.
That was a 3D printed model.
Yeah.
Really nice. Now, I don't have the information as to how many parts it was, but it certainly wasn't one.
Right.
Or where the model actually came from in terms of CAD design. The author of this email was fairly adamant saying that it was not a model, that it was a display.
Right. And I do think that the person who wrote in assumed that it was a one-piece print, which I think was in error, although I don't know that for sure.
Well, that's what I get. I think some of this pushback from this technology is a lot of it's rooted in some misunderstandings as to what it actually is. I mean, some of these kits are very simplistic.
Yes.
Very few parts. Some of the models are even one part, but the guys at Scale Model Podcast talked about this in one of their recent episodes, and I think that's how this got started, because I replied to Stuart Clark with some comments saying, these things are all scale models. A one-piecer is not a kit. A kit by definition has plurality of components, so it's not a kit unless it came with the paint, maybe.
Right.
But it's still a scale model, and that's kind of the end of our, the end goal of our endeavor here is to build scale models, create scale models. So it's still a scale model. Now, back to this email. At what point, I guess, was I could never understand the. It's not a model. Well, it's certainly a model. It might not be a kit, but it's a model. It's a scale model. It's a smaller representation of something in real life or something even in fiction that's a lot bigger than it's being represented there on the show table. I think some models, some of them are very complex as far as part count goes, as much as a plastic kit or, some of the more complex traditionally cast resin kits out there. I think they run the gamut. There's an entire spectrum from a one part model up to a kit that's got, maybe 1,000 parts that's probably out there.
And I think that we're still in the phase where there's not complete, and maybe, okay, this was back in 2021 and here we are in 2023. I think that the understanding of what 3D printing is and what 3D kits and 3D accessories look like and how they're manufactured, I think that's gotten a lot wider. Because I remember, we saw this not to the same extent, but we saw this when resin aftermarket and aluminum barrels came out. It was a minority attitude, but it was that's cheating attitude.
Right.
That's taking a shortcut, that you're doing something that didn't used to be done, and therefore that's not right. Whereas, this hobby is like any other, it's evolving. What you had to scratch build 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you don't have to do that anymore. And in fact, even the concept of scratch building, if you've got a 3D printer available and you're good at CAD, you might be able to scratch build something with sheet plastic and brass and whatever, or you go into the CAD, you model it up, and then you print it on a 3D printer. So they're just different. They're different techniques.
What do you think, Evan?
Well, it's definitely a different skill set, but you say, you just have to be good at CAD and design it and print it. Well, to some people, that's even more difficult than scratch building, like, with styrene and stuff. You have to actually have the skill and learn the software and then also learn the whole printing process as well. It's an intensive process, so long as you're not just buying something online. And I mean, even in that case, you might print a figure in one piece, but there's one piece resin figures you can buy already and such. I definitely think that it's a skill set you need to be able to make use of 3D printing, especially for designing your own stuff, because it's complicated. It's not just you click a couple buttons and your part comes out or your whole model comes out in one piece. There's a reason why I've got a 3D printer and I already have the skill to use CAD, and I still have not even started trying to, because it's going to take me months to actually be able to get to that point where it's worthwhile. And right now I'm just, busy with other projects. So it's not really something I want to get into.
Yeah. And see, I think that is true, that there's just because of the newness of it all. And it's not really new. I mean, you go back, this has been going on for quite a while, but at least our hobby, it's relatively new, that there's just not there are plenty of people who think exactly that, Evan, that you just go push a button on your computer and magically you get this item. And that's the furthest thing from the truth, even if you're buying the original CAD renders from a third party.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly cleanup, and depending on the quality of the model, the CAD model, and the quality of the hardware you're printing it on, there's a lot of nuance there. And my opinions on this, as far as are they equal or are they comparable to organic scratch built models, I'm all over the place.
It's hard to say it's comparable, but it's its own thing, right? Yeah,
my opinion is in flux for sure, and I don't know. Maybe at the convention we can see what other people think about it. I mean, I've got a 3D printer. I don't use it to the extent some of these other folks are using it. I use it as a tool. Everything on my bench right now has something I've printed on this thing. but it's not some highly detailed, awe-inspiring CAD modeling. It's some pretty basic stuff that I used it for a shortcut to get some parts quick. And it's just kind of a tool. That's the way I use it. And I don't know, we also, God, who were we talking to? Oh, it's Chris Wallace, Model Airplane Maker, was giving us a kind of an overview of their club's rules changes or rules expansion for inclusion for 3D printed stuff and how to incorporate that. And, it was a pretty good first pass. I don't remember exactly what they were doing, but seemed pretty reasonable to me what they were doing. It'll still evolve more. It's certainly here to stay. Is it going to destroy plastic modeling as we know it?
No.
I guess the as we know it part is a little nuanced, but no, there's going to be plastic kits for the foreseeable future. I mean,
well, come on. Half the fun is going to the hobby store and looking at everything stacked up on the shelves. You can't do that if you're printing at home.
That's true.
Wait a minute. Are you suggesting that sitting in front of the computer and leafing through CAD files is not as exciting?
No. Categorically, no. It's not even as much fun as searching Hannets or some of the other big web stores, ScaleMates or the modeling news.
There you go.
Well, another part of this is kind of because of the glut of things we're seeing is just the quality spectrum of this stuff. And Evan, I know you've got like a bazillion different sets of 3D printed tracks from the maker du jour.
Yes.
And they just keep coming. Have you abandoned that yet?
Well, since the last video, I only have acquired one additional set of tracks. But I've acquired lots of other bits and bobs. Like, for example, my ScaleMates, I actually use ScaleMates a lot now because you can put a stash on there and keep track of all your items, which helps me remember what aftermarket I have for what project. I have like 500 items, but, 100 of those are actually kits. The rest are all, here's a 3D printed antenna base for a British whatever vehicle, and here's one for a German. Like I have a lot of little bits and bobs that I've bought for pennies sometimes over the past years. And yeah, there is definitely a wide range of quality. I can talk a little bit about some of my experiences there for sure with some of the brands if you want.
Sure.
So absolutely some of the best, like a lot of stuff that I look for is details like tool clamps, basically things that would generally be done with photo etch. So details that generally look too chunky in plastic, I like to replace those with 3D printed parts because it's fairly straightforward and it makes the model look, more in scale. And it's also easier than photo etch, and especially sometimes photo etch is almost too thin. Dave, you talked about this before, where sometimes you have to kind of fold some box together from photo etch and it looks worse than the plastic part did in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it's too thin because it's brass, sheet, and it really should be a little bit thicker than that in real life. So I find resin details or 3D printed resin details are excellent for this area. And so yeah, tool clamps for sure. I've got a whole bunch of sets, and honestly, the best one I have is, I think, maybe the original or the first one that kind of was all over the place, which is MJ Miniatures. Their tool clamps are the best. All the other ones I have, which is like, the T-Rex tool clamps, the FC Model Trend, Roshem model, they're all, I think the issue is they are 100% to scale, but the tools in the kits are slightly overscale, so they don't actually fit. The MJ Miniatures ones are the perfect size where you can actually put you sand off the horrible plastic tool clamp blob on your shovel, and you can slide the shaft or the handle into that tool clamp, and it looks perfect. It looks like the real thing, when a lot of the other ones, they seem to be too small. And also the FC Model Trend, their stuff is always terrible quality. I'm not sure how for years they have managed. This is the opinion of myself, not the opinion of the Plastic Model Mojo podcast, but FC Model Trend 3D prints are completely like covered in layer lines, and they're god awful. I don't know why. I keep buying sets for them to see if they improve, but it's just every time it's like, you've been doing this for years. Why is it always so bad?
You're going back to the abusive girlfriend, thinking that this time
I'll be better to you this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the stuff I'm surprised. It's like they're still printing on a 2K printer or something, which for a company that's selling stuff is a little bit. It's just way behind the bar now, I guess.
Well, it makes you wonder how big some of these outfits even are, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, FC Model Trend's one of the ones you keep seeing all over Facebook.
Well, that means it's just not some guy in his spare room, though. You really never know.
Well, one of the sets I've got recently is Demon Barber Design. And his stuff, and he is just a guy. Like he's just printing them himself. He's got a website and he sells them. It's some of the best stuff I've seen. He's got tracks. He's got T34, like the vents on the engine deck sides. Those like grills basically. The exhausts are super thin, and they look like they're as they are in real life, which I guess is bent rod for those grills. It looks better than photo etch, and it's one piece. It's got the weld already printed into that exhaust tube when it's bent, and it's super thin. It's like, this is top of the line. It's just some guy doing it, but he's really, really good, and his tracks are also excellent. And then you've got actual companies that don't seem to have the passion to make good quality products.
I think the general experience, though, is that the stuff is getting better and better.
Absolutely.
Every 6 months, it seems like there's, it's back like, how processors used to double in power every 18 months.
Yeah.
It's like every 6 or 12 or 18 months, you're getting another level of quality out of these 3D printing companies doing things that some of these tracks are some of them are just flat amazing now.
Oh, absolutely. I'm at the opinion now where 3D printed tracks are better than metal tracks because they are more filigree, I guess is the term.
Yeah.
They are crisper. The cast metal tracks, well, they have their own benefit. They have the weight, and you can blacken them with chemical fluids. They're a little bit chunky, These 3D printed tracks, they look perfect. They have the cast marks, like, the little maker mark, the factory codes, everything on there. It is amazing, and the good brands I've talked about in my videos, they go together faster than Friel Model or Master Club, because you don't have to you don't end up with the crappy ones where the pins aren't, like the holes aren't drilled through and stuff. You just put the pins in each time and they click in place, no glue. It's just so much fun. Basically, there's no stress at all.
And clearly that's got to have been one of the things that contributed to Friel now closing down.
I think there's a couple reasons for that. But I would say that yes, the competition from 3D printed tracks is probably part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And then, the Master Club are going to be hard pressed to get right now.
Exactly.
So good thing some of the 3D printed tracks are worthwhile. I know the ones I got from Tankcraft were excellent. Just going to have to revisit the finishing techniques on those because you can't blacken them with the fluid anymore. So there's a time when we didn't have metal tracks. So at least for me, I don't know about you, Evan.
I'm sure when they were first introduced, they were considered cheating, right?
Oh, yes. I guarantee you there were people when they were first introduced who were complaining about people using them.
No, I think the bigger complaint was that when they first came out was just the price was.
Well, yeah, there was modelers will complain about prices till the cows come home.
But pay it anyway.
Yeah, but pay it anyway. They'll stay in the six in the room to the Motel 6 in order to spend $60 on a sheet of photo etch that'll go into their stash.
I'm anxious to see what's going to be available. I'm curious what Mr. Vargas is going to have for us as a surprise. I don't follow his news too much unless one of his kits gets posted to either ScaleMates or over on Armorama or something like that. So just going to be surprised. And then who knows? Maybe there's going to be somebody there selling something that's completely new.
And see, that's the thing I would probably bet on. If you're asking me to place a bet about something about the Nationals, it would be that there will be one or more vendors who have one or more 3D products from new companies that are new items that are a generational shift in 3D printing, and they'll sell like hotcakes. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something.
Any more on quality?
It just keeps getting better.
And probably they're going to separate the wheat from the chaff too.
Yes, there's going to be
folks who aren't going to
weeding.
invest in new equipment are going to go falling by the wayside.
Oh yeah.
Well, kind of the last area I want to touch on, and this gets back to again, I'm not going to put any names here because this is someone I'd consider as a show guest, and I'd actually bought something from, and then I started thinking about what they were doing. A very popular sci-fi franchise owned by Disney. I was interested because some of this guy's work was on the cover of the kind of the Euro diorama magazine.
Right.
Big glossy A4 format, front to back, all color. One of those guys, $20 magazine. Yep. So I started looking and I'm not bringing it up to disparage anyone. It was a concern why I kind of didn't pursue that any further was some things like that genre have some pretty serious IP implications.
They do.
And, I don't want to get anybody in trouble because I didn't know. I guess I could have asked, but my gut feel was that maybe they were freelancing some of this stuff. I don't know.
Yeah,
I have my suspicions, but I don't know. And when at Wonderfest, we talked about it a little bit, and I don't know that I've ever seen it. Maybe you have, but there have been years that's been policed at that show.
Yes. In fact, I have a personal story about that.
Well, let's hear that. That's relevant.
One individual at Wonderfest was selling resin cast logos of a very famous flying mouse-like vigilante character, their logo, and selling them at a table at the show. And I know for a fact that person 3 months later got a letter from the attorneys for, at the time, I think Warner Brothers owned the franchise. Basically a cease and desist, and do you want to make a deal before we sue you type letter. And and speaking of Disney, if you want to talk about somebody who protects their IP jealously, Disney does. And I think you are going to see as this technology develops and people start doing things from IP owned by somebody else. Of course, you can always legally do that thing for yourself. There is no problem with you taking a Star Wars item, modeling it up in 3D software, printing it, and painting it and having it for yourself. There's never an issue with that. The issue becomes when they either do this and a friend says, hey, will you send me that file? Or they go out on one of these file sharing services. And I guarantee you that Disney and the other IP owners, Marvel, whoever, are out there and they are policing that. And they've got bots crawling the internet searching for possible infringements. And as this technology explodes, the IP issues are going to explode as well, because lawyers are always going to show up where there's money involved or money to be made.
You'd know.
Yes, I would.
Dave's rubbing his hands over there waiting.
Damn lawyers. Damn lawyers.
Well, guys, anything else? Just a brief conversation, just kind of what we're thinking about 3D printing.
I just can't wait to see what develops in 3D printing, because I do think it is what resin casting was 30 years ago. Mike, you were around in the 80s. God, I guess that's 40 years ago.
Yeah, I wasn't around in the 80s.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Evan. Appreciate you rubbing that in. You remember what it was like when Verlinden really hit the modeling scene in the late 80s, early 90s. And all of these resin figures and diorama accessories, and it exploded the modeling universe, particularly dioramas. Dioramas used to be few and far between, and they weren't, they were all scratch built, very specialized. So it wasn't a huge category. And then once Verlinden came in with all the resin accessories, all the buildings, all the stuff like that, the diorama categories just went crazy.
Oh yeah.
And I think that resin printing is going to have that same effect, and not just diorama categories, but I think you're going to see that effect on all categories, with things opened up and things displayed and new ways to display stuff because of all this 3D printed accessories.
I'm just waiting for the plastic model Mojo 3D printed milepost marker to be the next Verlinden Buddha and be on every single diorama on the table there.
I need to print up a mess of those to take to Nats. That's the one thing I do need to do.
Yes, you do. Make yourself a note.
I might put it with the panhard when I make a diorama for that in the future.
Well, not only do I have it, I painted and weathered mine. I can't. Jim says I can't count that as a completed kit, but
it's not a kit.
It's not a kit.
It's miscellaneous categories for.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to put it on a very tiny plinth and just put it there and enter it in the miscellaneous category.
No, we'll end this here.
Okay. We're here at the end of the episode, and I assume that means everybody has finished their modeling fluid.
I'm not quite done. True.
Well, I've finished mine. Evan, how did your tequila fizzy cocktaily thing turn out?
It's not that fizzy. It's ranch water.
Hey, I didn't call it girly.
That's what you were implying, though.
Yeah, well,
not that I would deny that too much. It was great. I've had it before. The tequila note reminds me. When you get to that margarita and the last sip is like, whoo. It's not that bad, but it has a little bit of that note, the tequila note that I like, and it goes well with the lime. Nice and refreshing. It's a bit warm in my studio here with these lights right now, so a good beverage for this night.
So, Mike, how about yours?
Evan won't get this one, but to quote Keith Jackson, whoa, Nelly.
I got that one. So
I tell you, this is it's very interesting. I probably should have had it a little bit colder. I think I'd enjoyed it a little bit more. It's good.
Yes,
it's really good. It's got a really front forward citrus thing, and it's somewhere between like grapefruit and like tangerines.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little sweeter than grapefruit. This thing reminds me, to be honest, of a sour.
Oh, really? See, I didn't get
bit.
I didn't get that quite off of it. Now, I was probably having.
It's just colder because it's so tart from the citrus side. I poured it in a glass just because I wanted to see it. I mean, this stuff is opaque.
Yes.
It's kind of a straw color. It reminds me of some orange juice I got in East Berlin when I was there. And it's got some, let's just say it's unfiltered. We'll put it that way. Definitely unfiltered. You could probably feel those go by your teeth. The last sip.
It's a bit hazy.
Hazy.
Hey, that's an understatement.
I know.
you cannot see through it at all. But it's good. So thank you. I'm glad he gave us this. Didn't he say this was his favorite?
I don't know if he said
or
it
from
was
his private
favorite.
stash.
I think it was from his private stash, and I think he likes the brewery. I don't know if he said that was his favorite that they make, and I think it's something that they don't make all the time.
Yeah, I think that was it. He was out. He gave us his last two. I think he told us, or two of his last three.
Yeah.
Well, I can't find an ABV on the can, but it's a double IPA, so it's probably.
I looked it up. I'll post it in the show notes.
Well, what you got? How's yours?
The Cider Boys Peach Country Apple Peach Hard Cider. It's good. It's light. You can taste the peach, but it is a hard apple cider. Evan, I will save one of these for you, and we will haul it with us to San Marcos. It's good. It's very enjoyable, very light. Like Evan said, it's something that you could see yourself drinking. Well, in fact, I did drink one of these while I was mowing the yard and listening to On the Bench the other day. And it's that kind of refreshing alcoholic beverage. So I enjoyed it. Mike, almost time to go here, but we got to have some shout outs before we go.
Well, has Evan got any?
Evan, you got a shout out?
My good friend Bruce Worrell will be, of course, coming down to Nats with us. He's been plowing through that Panzer IV he started a couple days ago, and it looks like he's going to have it done. That's going to be one hell of a speed build for sure. So look forward to seeing that if he gets it done, meeting him at Nats, of course. And he's also going to give me a ride home, which I appreciate as well. Thanks, Bruce.
Well, I'd like to shout out the folks who've taken upon themselves to support Plastic Model Mojo through their generosity. Our latest are Roger Newman from Australia and our good friend Derek Post. They've chosen to support the show through Patreon. You can do the same by going to www.patreon.com/plasticmodelmojo, and there you can do a recurring contribution from any amount from $1 on up, and Patreon will handle the billing there. If you'd like to do a one-time contribution or manage your own recurring contribution, you can go to www.plasticmodelmojo.com, and in the upper right-hand corner of the website, there's a heart icon that will take you directly to our PayPal link where you can take care of that any amount and any frequency you want. So we've had a few Patreons come through this week, and we really appreciate it, guys. I got some ideas, and if any of these come to fruition, well, everything helps, but we're getting to where maybe we can try some new things, and we appreciate the support.
Well, my shout out, and this one's going to be a little inside the tent, but my shout out is to one Evan McCallum for taking it upon himself to fly to Louisville and then drive with us 15 and a half hours to San Marcos. I'm telling you, Evan, that's not something everybody would do. I'm really looking forward to you coming and doing it, and I know Mike is as well. I think it's going to make our trip down just another level of enjoyable. Mike and I, when we drive to nationals like we did Omaha last year, we have a great time in the car. We're doing we're shooting ideas, talking. You never know where the conversation goes. And I am looking forward to having you along and spending 15 and a half hours picking your brain.
That's if I'm awake for any of it.
Well, we'll make sure you're awake. You'll be too afraid to sleep.
We'll take you to Buc-ee's.
There you go.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
All right, guys. As we always say,
so many kids.
So little time, Dave. Evan, thanks for joining us again, and we will see you in a few days.
See you on the way to the